What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Keep Growing, the spot where resilience meets style and self-improvement gets a cultural twist. We're here to help young men like you walk through life with confidence, intention, and a plan for success. From life tips to fresh kicks, we've got the tools and inspiration to help you not just survive, but thrive. From where you are to where you're going, let's keep growing. What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. And man, I can't ever tell you how excited that intro song makes me, bro. Like,
sounds good. It sounds
this
good
is probably
every
one of
time,
my favorite ones
Yeah.
that I've got to experience, especially with you sitting by my side, man. So, very happy and blessed to have you right here. Julian Robertson, the co-host of Keep Growing.
Appreciate it, man.
I hope all of you guys out there are having a wonderful day. And if you guys haven't noticed already, if you're not living in an area that with a warm climate, but it's getting warm outside.
It is. I love it.
And it just shows you how close we are to, getting to that spring and summertime weather, which is good in both ends. But more importantly, holding us accountable some of those workout goals that we have, bro.
At least where we are, because I've been looking at the news and CNN, some places about to get like a storm, like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some places like winter is really
man.
So it's crazy, but
So depending on where you are, we can throw you some heat, some warm weather, and some good vibes, especially during these 45 to 50 minutes of being on the Keep Growing show. So, like I said, guys, very, very happy to be sitting here. We've had some really good conversations about what it means to be a man at 25, some key essential tips to have going into the job market. And today specifically, we're going to be talking about athletes and what it means to be an athlete as a young adult, in this case as a young man, and what type of not only adversity you're going through, but what type of coaches you're going to be able to come up against, and how much value sometimes a coach can hold depending on what situation you're in. We're going to get right into it with our Game Changer segment. And the Game Changer segment is coming across any type of tip, act, or surprisingly awkward or random shout out that I come across on social media. Or in this case, sometimes Julian will come across if he has anything to bring to the show. And we're going to sit here and talk about it. So today specifically, we're going to kind of look back to last week. As some of you guys know, living in Phoenix, Arizona, we get the luxury of hosting the Waste Management Phoenix Open. I don't know. Have you been to that?
I haven't
Julian?
been, but I'm aware of it. Yeah.
Oh, bro, it's crazy. Few PGA tours in, I think, in the history of golf that host something for specifically the audience of the people that go. So they'll have concerts, festivals, a huge, the whole nine. So it's a huge party.
Okay.
So I was looking at something on TikTok and I came across it, and I'm going to read you this. It said, as of last week, with Sunday being the end of it, because it usually starts on a Tuesday, there were over 200 plus DUIs and 60 arrests made from the time Tuesday hit of last week to Sunday of this coming week. For sure. 200 plus DUIs, bro.
That's a lot. I heard last year, people something happened where people were just bombarding and getting in.
I think they shut down. They shut it down. I think on Friday, a half day. So they stopped selling alcohol and they kicked everyone out. So, what are your thoughts on that? 200 plus DUIs.
Well, I'll say this, at least because I used to play, well, not seriously, but I know how to play golf. So I used to play golf when I was younger. I haven't played in a while. I'll go to like Top Golf and tee off. But I think, at least from what I've heard in regards to the Waste Management Tour, that's almost like, it's not the most top tier in regards to like PGA tours. And for that reason, because golf is a very esteemed sport.
It is.
So usually it's a gentleman's game.
Yes.
So when you're there, it's a code of conduct. And at least from what I've heard, I haven't been to the Waste Management Tour.
You're on the right point.
I've heard, it's like it's like a tier down. It's a few tiers down in regards to environmental. Because it's beautiful. The course is beautiful, but just as far as holistically. Having said that, I think again, specifically with this type of, because again, golf is it's an etiquette sport. But if we're talking about this specific sector of it, as far as like the waste management, that's the vibe that it brings in regards to, at least from what I've heard. Absolutely. I've only seen videos and I've only seen footage and pictures.
What you see is what you get when you go, for sure.
And that's what I mean, because when you look at some of the other I don't want to misword it, but like the Augusta tournaments, there's a certain element of just like prestigiousness and it's a vibe that comes with it, to where it's like that's just not part of it. Bringing people there that are coming for the vibe, who don't care about golf. No, they're just coming for the theatrics of it. So when that happens, now you're bringing a certain element to where it's not just about golf. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
holistically in totality, I mean, that's what's not saying that's what's permitted, but that's the vibe.
That's the expectation you get when you go to something like that. As a player, you have to play into it. It's not about winning or losing. It's about enjoying the game and just going out and having fun. I think at some point. I agree.
I think the unfortunate reality is when things like this happen, now it starts to like, at least from whoever's over, you know, these type of things. Now you have to like look into it to where it's like, is it worth it?
Yeah, on here. And fun fact, I found out that we make over $600 billion I think in the Valley just alone, in people who play golf income.
I mean, it makes sense. It's gorgeous out
there. Yeah, man, so, it's beautiful
for sure.
So I'm gonna start this first topic off with a hot take, and I'm just gonna come out and say around the fact that Jillian and I kind of met at a time where we were able to have good conversations about sports and athletics. We didn't know very much about each other, but found out that we both were college athletes. So I'm gonna make the hot take of the coaches that you're going to play for is more important than the school you're going to.
I would agree.
So I'm going to start that off with that hot take, and I want to hear your perspective on it and why you agree, and in your terms, like how does that make you feel and resonate with what your journey looked like?
Yeah, I mean, of course they're going to always be like the big schools. If we're talking about just Big Ten, Big East, ACC, SEC, certain schools, like they're the schools that people know about, the prominent schools. But I think subsiding that. And again, if we're talking just high level D1 or whatever, just whatever aspect.
We'll say any type of
any
school.
Yeah, any type of school. It doesn't matter. You're right about that. It doesn't matter. But just in regards to anything, like it's really about what system and the coaches that you go to. I think those things run linear.
Love it.
Because the coaches have to understand who you are as a player.
Yeah.
And systematically, there needs to be a fit for your game. And I think, not to be long with it because it's a nuanced conversation, but I think those two things matter the most relative to the name brand or the school name. Because what's going to carry you is a coach that believes in you and understands your game and that runs a system that's befitting of your game.
Yeah,
I think those two things matter the most.
No, for sure. And I think which I'm on board with everything you say. I think to add, my perspective on it is schools nowadays, and it's not even just these D1 schools. Schools nowadays are doing a really good job promoting themselves on social media, which can be very hard at a 17 or 18-year-old age to just see like, oh, but they get this and this other school does, and like which one do I really choose?
Sure.
But I think one thing to be mindful of as that young college athlete is, do I want to go play somewhere, or do I just want to be a part of the hype?
Yeah.
Like, do I want to be a jersey wearer, or do I just want to be, or want to be someone who's going to go out and, be an all conference kind of guy? Sure, I would definitely, push the fact that before you even look at a school, like, which is nice and all, how many people go there or whatever, look at the coach, look at what type of players he's really building up and developing. And I think nowadays is the perfect time to do that, because you can easily go to that roster and sometimes they'll have their social media handles, or you can just find their highlight tapes either on YouTube or whatever type of platform they're using nowadays for college sports, and really try to like compare yourself as an athlete to what some of these guys look like. Because man, if I would have been more cognitive in my, college recruiting journey, I'm not saying I would have made a different choice, but I would have definitely had it in the back of my head, like, ideally, how many years am I going to be playing at this school? What would that look like? And I just don't think those are questions that some of these kids are asking themselves.
Yeah. And you're able to speak to that now because you have a certain level of maturity.
For sure.
Which is natural. You know what I mean? We're not supposed to even, you're 18, 17, well, young, let's just say high school. So 14 through 18.
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to be able to know what you know now in regards to like the information that you know now. So looking back in hindsight, of course, you know what I mean? You're like, with the knowledge you have now, I would have done this and this. And that's why it's important to have people around you, a father, an uncle, whomever that's around you, to where it's like, no, let me gauge. Let me be there with you in the recruiting process, because I can see things that you're just not going to be able to see just from a youthful standpoint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So those things matter the most, but I agree. That's genuinely what it's about.
No, I think, okay, so next question would be, what red flags should these athletes be looking for? When it comes to these recruiting trips, obviously you get maybe partnered with a player, but eventually you get to the point to where you start meeting with the coach and you talk to the recruiting coordinator, or you talk to the assistant coach, or maybe get lucky and talk to the head coach. What are some things that these guys can look for and really understand, like, does this coach really have interest in me, or am I just a number to get to the point to where they need to be?
That's a great question. And I think there's a bullet point of things that could be listed, but I would just say like the biggest. And I think everybody wants to be desired. Everybody wants to be wanted. And I think, yes, that's natural. But I think just in totality, a player should look for a coach that's going to be honest with him. He's recruiting you, so he obviously sees something within you. But he's going to be, and that's why, like when I watch things on like John Calipari and certain coaches like that, I can respect them from the standpoint of like, for one, they're recruiting you, so they want you.
Yeah.
But for a coach to be like, hey, look, yes, let's get that out the way. We're recruiting you, so we want you. But you don't just have a spot on the team. Like, you're going to have to work when you get to practice. And these are elements in your game that you're going to have to work on. And we're also bringing in other good players that you're going to have to compete. Like, they're nice. Because at that point, you have a reality. You have reality.
Right. You know what to expect.
You know what to expect. And I think that's the most important, because that's contrary to where you hear about players that are like, well, he recruited me and this and that, and now I came and it's a totally different situation. Well, you fell for the okie doke. And I'm not mad, but I'm not upset about that, of course, because you're young, but at the same time, like you were being fed with a whole bunch of things to make you feel good.
There you go.
Regardless, I mean, other than you being in a situation to where it's like, yes, by default we want you because we're recruiting you, but this, we want you, but we have to be honest. And I think that's what's really needed, and I think that's why it's important to have somebody there in your corner, a father, an uncle, a coach, whomever, to where he can be like, you're going to have to make your decision. This is on you, but I like this for you because he's honest with you. As a man, he's able to see that. This is a man speaking to you. He's not sugarcoating it. He's not just, you know what I mean, telling you what you want to hear. He's being honest. And I think that's where a man in your life, father, uncle, coach, grandfather, whomever, can assess that and say, this is what's right for my son, my grandson, my uncle, my nephew, whomever it is. Rather than him just being caught in the hype. And it's like you get there, now the coach flips or doesn't switch. You just don't, you don't see that side because now he's coaching you. Now you're like, I'm ready to transfer. I'm ready to enter the portal. No, get with somebody who's going to, of course, they're recruiting you, but they're being honest with you. We can go through a multitude of others, but I think that's the biggest one right there. I like that one. Because now when you get there, everything else doesn't matter. You know the reality. Like, I have to work. They recruited me. They want me. You know what I mean? They're not going to recruit you if they don't want you and bring you here for no reason. So off top, we already know that they want you. But after that, then what? The honesty is what matters. So I think that's the biggest one.
And I think the transparency is so crucial because of the fact that they're treating these, on the flip side, you know, you have the coach. The coaches are treating these like business meetings. You know, it's like they're purchasing a house. Like, they got to make sure they go to each house and see what's fitting for them, not just what the house is going to fit, you know, for the people coming in. And I think where kids get, and the guidance and the education, and maybe it's something that they can start doing on their own, is understanding that they are stock. You know, you are your own stock when you're an athlete. You're your own brand. And regardless if you have signed, you know, any type of deals or not, you're still your own brand, and you got to be able to market yourself in a professional and healthy way. And I think the goal to this is to have that capacity and that knowledge to be able to step in those meetings and be like, coach, like, the reason I'm here is X, Y, and Z. And like, you know, how do you also fit into what I'm looking for as a coach? And I don't think there's anything wrong with it if it's, you know, delivered the right way. But I think there was a time when you and I were in college where throwing a check at us, that meant something. Like, that had a huge impact. I'll speak for myself. It meant a lot for me. If a coach was to just throw me a check and just be like, hey, full ride right off the bat, it would definitely sway me a little bit more than it, because college was expensive. It still is, but college for me for sure was still expensive at that time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I would have definitely been like, okay, that's a little bit different. But I think my tip of advice that I would offer in terms of, you know, a college or a high school kid looking to go somewhere is the fact that look at how the coach not only talks to you as a person, but how does he talk to his team? You know, and that's why I said it's so huge. Maybe not taking the extent of reaching out to these college athletes, but like show up to a practice.
Absolutely, that's a great.
You know, show up to a practice, or in this case, you know, really ask your coach, like, where do you see me? You know, in my third year. If you're really speaking to the recruiting coordinator or other coach, like, you know, where do you see me in my junior year? Like, where could I be excelling at? And, you know, they'll have the answer ready to go, but is that the answer that you're willing to live with? You being put into that mindset. So really putting it back on the coach, I think would be my advice of, as much as they're coming in on you and it can be a little intimidating, but knowing to ask them. And I guarantee you not a lot of athletes are still doing that, And
I think, again, that's where I goes to having somebody there for you to really be able to get, because you're so young, there's no way you can know all of that. You know what I mean? There's just no way. And that's why you need it. And I'll just leave with this on this, because I was just watching something on Derrick Rose, and he went back to Chicago. He did some things, and he was saying in regards to his recruiting process, he was speaking with his mom, and she gave him great advice. It was between Illinois. He was getting recruited by everybody, but he was talking about Illinois recruiting him and John Calipari, who was with Memphis. And she told him, she was like, son, basically, this is your decision. But remember who came into, we know where Derrick Rose is. He's from Chicago. He's from the crib. But, he's from a certain environment. He's from a certain element of the city. Yeah. And so she said, remember what coach came into our environment and came to sit on our couch and talk with you. That's meaningful. Yeah. You know what I mean? So when we talk about red flags and coaches, it's about, again, holistically and just in life, but who's really pulling up in there for you?
There you go.
So you're saying in regards to being recruited, yes, this coach wanted him, Illinois, but John Calipari came into his house, into his environment.
I like that.
And he came to Chicago.
That's old school, dude.
Exactly. So she said, it's your choice. But and I think that was beautifully said by his mom, because again, it's his choice regardless. But just keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. Who came and sat down? Who came into our house and sat down and talked with you? Both coaches are recruiting you. Of course, there are a multitude, but one of these coaches did that and the other one didn't. And again, I say that to say yes. And I should have said it it doesn't matter. When I say mother, father, uncle, whomever, it could be mother, aunt, whomever, but just somebody who has understanding that can see the situation and can be like, it's your choice, but this, I see this. And from a perspective of wisdom, that's needed, regardless to whomever it is, somebody that loves you and that has wisdom in that recruiting process, that's essential, because in regards to who we were at that age, all of us, we've matured profoundly. Yeah. I didn't have the maturity that I have now. Now. So we can for sure speak on how we would have thought about it from our perspective then, but now we need guidance in that very moment from somebody that loves and cares about us and says, I'm seeing this for you. You make your decision, but think about this. And that's needed.
I definitely know the fact that the head coach being there meant everything to both of them. And I think that's why it's so important. We really got to be, in this case, athletes nowadays got to really hold these coaches accountable, because very, very rarely will you get to experience the head coach. But even if it's just a recruiting coordinator, I think if they're showing up to wherever you're being playing or being seen at, and they have a conversation, they give you that their number, or they get your number. I think it's very imperative to know how many times are they texting you, honestly, because there's going to be coaches out there. There's going to be at least one coach out there, if you're doing as much as possible to market yourselves to go and want to play somewhere, who will text you once a week. I've seen it every day. I've seen my friends at least once a week, but every day is, that's a dream come true.
For sure.
But I think the more times that these kids pay attention and understand, if that coach really told you something, just like your coaches tell you at practice, your high school coaches can be a great reflection of that. As much as you tell your coach, hey, I'm going to be out there every Wednesday shooting hoops, at 7:00 in the morning, and you miss a day, and they're like, hey, you said you were going to do this. Now it's the same thing for coaches. Yeah. Hey, you said you were going to text me, next week. Next week came, didn't text you. Accountability. Gotta understand that. Absolutely. And, having that parent that's there with you. But if you don't, it's not that life ain't fair. It's the fact that you got to do it on your own now. Okay, this coach really isn't putting time, but he said he would. What does that really mean? That's just, you're just a number right now. Yeah. He hasn't texted you yet. You're just a number. Absolutely. So, being very open to regardless of the school that you really wanting to go to, regardless of what they have or what they don't have, the power of the conference or the stuff they get, which can be hard to overlook. It's you got to be desired in that set.
Yeah.
Cool, bro. Well, no, that's a great conversation to start off with in the athletic world. And I think also the fact of how, I have a lot of respect for you, especially after we had that conversation when we were both in Mavasa. I'll always remember it. And you talked to me about, your failures, in your college career. And I think one thing that I always took away from it was how you didn't put any blame on the coach. And I respect that, dude, because I think I think it's very easy for people to put a lot of excuse and blame on the coach for why they didn't get or why they should have gotten the playing time or played, their all 4 years. So I do give you a lot of respect in that because I know it's so easy to just make that excuse and leave people like, oh, well, he could have, he could have done that and have that like question or curiosity. But I think the reality of it is sometimes it's not the coach.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely, I agree.
That brings me to the next part that I really want to talk about, and it's how to handle a coach who doesn't like you. So I want to be able to in this conversation offer some applicable tips to these guys on how they can work with it because it is out there.
Oh, it's real.
It's real, dude. Yeah, it's real.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes more than not, it's a passive aggressiveness that's handled rather than like a direct. I don't think a coach is going to be like, I don't like you. You're worthless.
Absolutely.
But I think the passive aggressiveness in a coach to a player or certain players is definitely there.
Microaggressions. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask you, like, have you experienced that? And what would be, maybe let's talk about 2 to 3 different ones that you could offer that would be, good tips for these guys to really to dial in and possibly handle with their high school coaches going on right now, if that's appearing.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about very specific things that I even remember.
Dang, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Like that's
no. Because I mean, this is part of like sports. It's part of life.
Yeah.
Like, so if you play sports long enough in regardless to age range, but if you play sports for like the duration of your life until a certain point, by default, you're going to come in contact with certain things.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is, and I'm going to just be very, very candid with it. Of course, continue to work on your game, but just destroy. Like every time you get on the field, every time you get on the court, every time you get on the mat, like destroy. And I mean that in the sense of like, you can't deny greatness. So regardless to if a coach doesn't like you or not, regardless to if you're a walk-on or not, regardless to if you weren't recruited or not, regardless to whatever status you have, let your game speak for itself. And I'll just use this one example. I remember, I'm not going to say when, but
how old were you?
I don't want to give the age because it'll reflect where I was.
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm just going to give it holistically. Right. You know what I mean? I remember we were, the verbiage might give it away, but I remember we were in practice, and whether it's high school or college, you have recruits. You have like high school is a little different, college is a little different, but you have people that are coming, to maybe run in an open gym with you, or coming to see a practice or games, things like that. And I remember I was playing against it was just a one-on-one, but it was a recruit, and I was doing like I was playing with I was doing my thing, and I remember there was a coach that was like, because he was a little shorter than me, he was smaller than me. I'm backing him down, doing certain things, and he was like basically telling me, don't do that, don't play like that.
Okay.
I'm like, the objective of the game is to get the ball in the hoop. So you're not gonna tell a big man don't post up.
Yeah,
you're not gonna tell Steph Curry don't shoot. But I understood the dynamic in regards to like who I was on the team and somebody that was getting recruited.
Oh, okay.
And so it's
in a game?
No. This was
practice?
At practice. But
there were people there.
Yeah, I mean, this is after practice. Though.
Okay.
This was after practice. And so there were just certain things that transpired to where I was like, you're not going to tell somebody that for no, like, that's just not a normal thing to say. There were certain dynamics. And so I say that to say, go crazy. Like, it doesn't matter if you haven't been recruited, if you're a 5-star recruit, if you're a walk-on, if you're not a walk-on, if like, regardless of your status, if you work on your game, if you play well, you can't deny talent. You can't deny something. Like, if we're going to take it to baseball, if there's somebody on the mound and he's striking every person, like, you can't deny that.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing that you can do. Like, you can not like him, but he's proving by his actions that he's good, like that he's good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how much you don't like him, he's doing what he needs to do. And so that's why I say, let your game speak for itself. You don't really need to talk too much if you're nice. If you're nice on the field, if you're nice on the court, if you're nice on the gridiron, if you're a good position player, like,
right there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I say that to say, like, you're gonna come in contact with coaches that don't like you. It could be for reasons you don't know. You could be doing everything you could. They could not like you because they see something in you. They could not like you because of something internal. We don't know. It's not for you to know. So what? If you play well enough, They can't deny that. And if it's too out of hand, you might have to like start figuring out other options. That's a real reality too. Yeah. You know that we can't just absolve of that. Like that's why they have the transfer portal and things like that. But I'll say in totality, work on your game and allow your game to speak for itself. And regardless to how they feel, if you play like, there's nothing that can be said if your talent is just like that.
No, that's true, dude. Yeah, I think balling out in any type of environment, regardless of what people are saying, is going to always be the constructive thing to do.
Sure. Unless you're getting withheld, I'll say that. That's a different situation.
Yeah, but then there's not even an opportunity for you to ball out. You know what I mean? Like that would be a completely different situation. Yeah. But yeah, I think when it comes down to it, and I think personally, like based off of situations I've been in, it gets a lot more challenging the higher you get in the competitiveness of the game to ball out due to other outside factors. But I think, to easily ground yourself is to understand that the only reason you're playing it is for the love of it.
Absolutely.
And I think the way that these guys, in this case, I don't even care what sport it is, like I would make the argument, the only reason that these guys are playing as long as they are at a competitive rate that a lot of other people can't is because they simply love the game.
Oh, for sure.
Like, and I think the guys that are good, you don't even have to question that they're good because of the fact that they love it so much. And the guys that are in the league, I'm not saying there's guys that aren't in the league that shouldn't be there, but I think I heard something, and it was by a really famous quarterback, and he said that I got drafted number 1 not because of the fact that, I was good, but because the other team was so bad. Obviously, you get the first pick. So you get the first pick as a team and you're being so bad. They're not drafting you because of how they're drafting you because they were so bad last year. So you're bringing in a winner to a locker room of losers.
For sure.
So you're going to have people that are upset at the fact that you're trying to come change the culture.
That's a great point.
And it's a lot more challenging to do that if you're not good.
That's a great point.
And guys like that are good love the game, dude. They don't do it they don't care if they're down by 50. And that's one thing that I'll give Kyle Murray real quick props on and respect. And I'll tell my dad, like, he played his heart out, dude. He saw that score and he could easily just been like, I'm gonna coast this. Like, I don't need to try anymore. But he was still out there diving. He was trying to make plays, extend them, make passes down the field, and it just wasn't working out. But I think the second tip that I could offer on top of that is have that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh,
like
very true.
Have that conversation, because regardless if you ball out, you're still leaving with some type of aggression.
That's a great point.
That's getting built up inside you. And I think one thing that we can talk about with guys correlating to sports is sometimes getting out of that zone, like you talk about in the gym, how you get into that zone and it's sometimes like it's not easy to get you out of.
Sure.
Like, I think that's really, challenging at that age of a 17, 18-year-old to 21-year-old to know when to turn it on and off.
That's a great point.
And I don't always think when you leave that locker room that it's left at the locker room.
Oh, it's not.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think having that chip on your shoulder all the time, from what I've seen and I've learned, myself, is not healthy, because then it's just turning into I got to prove myself. I got to prove. And it carries on and it eats you alive up until you're old, bro. And that's why I said, like, I think there's a way of playing a game, like you said, in that moment, but to pull yourself out of it, what can you do? So having that conversation of like, Coach, this, like, my dad always told me, hey, Coach, like, I'm noticing this. I just want to know, because I'm feeling like you're not really on my side of the court. Like, I see how you talk to this dude and the way you talk to me. Like, I just don't see it being, constructive for me. And I know those are big words, but in this case, all you really got to say is like, Coach, like, are we cool? Like, are we good? What's going on? Like, is there something I can do better? Like, why do I feel like I'm getting, maybe scolded or yelled at, or I don't feel like we're seeing eye to eye? Like, as simple as that. And what's crazy? I don't think a lot of these coaches will have an answer for it.
And honestly, you saying that's honestly number one. I would say that's number one for real, because like going to a coach and being like, hey, Coach, for real, like, what's going on? Like, and then being able to speak to dynamics and things that you're seeing, that's number one for real, because I also agree, like, you'll be able to see right then and there what's his motive, what's going on. And if he doesn't have an answer, that's when you can really piece like, there's something like this can be basically taken in as, you're hating on me. Something's going on.
Or he's so shocked. I think it would also be like he doesn't know what to say because that coach is so shocked that a player actually asked him,
for sure,
like, hey, Coach, what's good?
For sure. But even if you were shocked, if there was something that was, if like it was truth behind it, you can answer it right away.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you know what I mean? If somebody asks you like, why you're doing this workout, I'm doing this because it helps this muscle group. There's no like, instantly. So, and that's why I say if it were to be something to where you ask and there's no real answer for it, now you can start garnishing, well, yeah, there's something else to this. Because if it was really something like, hey, I noticed you don't get back on defense, I noticed you don't do this, whatever it is, you can answer it right then and there. If you can't do that, sum up with the coach.
And I think that's where like I was mentioning earlier, how much of an impact a coach does. And we talked about on the BHD podcast and how it frustrates me with some of these coaches who don't understand the value and impact they have on the game and on some of these kids, not only inside the game, but outside in life when they get out of it. But for a coach to act like that with the age gap where they're supposed to be the leaders, the role models, the guys that are setting the standard, and to, maybe cold shoulder a guy, or he maybe wasn't the guy that they were hoping to recruit and he just came anyways and ended up being a pretty decent player. Like, I think knowing that and not having that type of expectation to go ahead and talk to him and give him a reason why, I think that's the moment to where, okay, it's time to leave.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily like the whole, and we've talked about this, the transfer portal and how guys just use it left and right. I don't know their situations, but I do think there needs to be a balance of some adversity that you're going through, because not everyone's going to like you in life.
For sure.
But at what point is that starting to become disrespectful? Because you're still a young kid.
For sure.
We're talking about these kids being 20 years old, trying to work with some of these top 5 coaches that are getting paid millions of dollars to do their job. And I do think there is a fine line of when it's time to transfer.
Oh, I agree.
So what would you say? When would that time be?
Honestly, I think, and again, I'll allude to what you said. I think if you have that conversation, and in that conversation, you're still feeling a sense of like a gripe, or you're feeling like a certain energy to where it's like, yeah, this is deeper than like the game, or you really have something towards me. Because you can understand if it's like, all right, the coach is telling you can work on this, you can work on that, certain things. But when it goes past that to where it's like, what's this really about? And then you still feel it after the conversation, I would say now you can start to think about like, yeah, is this the best fit? Because if your mental's being affected to where it's harming the way that you want to play, if it's affecting how you play, and if you have aspirations of playing at a higher level, you have a certain window. So with all of that being said, now, you do need to start thinking about other things, because you need to be in a space to where you can show your entirety, your game, so that you can get to wherever your aspirations are, to wherever it is that you want to go. Once those two things happen, I would say, now it's like, start thinking about it. Yeah, after that. But until then, it's like, okay. But then again, that goes into who do you have within your corner that you can speak to that will give you advice, like wait it out or look for these certain things, and then we'll assess and make moves. But I would say having that conversation, and if you still see things after that and it's affecting your mental, might be time, because every situation is just not going to be the situation for you.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think that's why I don't like. My opinion is the fact that I don't think guys should be transferring after a year unless it's really that bad. It has to be really that bad where you're transferring after a year. But I think we've seen in these last couple of years with how different the transfer portal is. We have guys that are hopping out after their season, or within a season. We're talking about bowl games that are like within 2 to 3 power bowl games to being the national championship, that are just hopping out and leaving and playing a major impact in those teams. And I just, part of me really like it doesn't sit right with me to think that they probably went through some pretty terrible stuff. So I would say, like, if you can go through a year, because if you think about it, 1 year is a red shirt. Usually with from how lenient I see where NCAA is right now, you can protest that year and get it back. Yeah, you can. If it really was that bad, you know what I mean? So I would say give yourself a year, because I remember my first year in college, and dude, it was hard trying to even just get used to the college lifestyle, from school to practice, and then trying to like make the team. When, being a preferred walk-on, like, it was almost feeling like, okay, this was right for me to set out this first year and just really get my head under my, you know what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely.
Like,
get acclimated.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. So I do have a hard time with thinking like in a year is okay, but I would say like you really got to have someone in your corner, to a coach, a mentor that understands what that's like and what that environment looks like, to make that decision of like, hey, like, I'm with you on this, but understand it's going to be something similar to this, maybe not exactly, but it's going to be something regardless of wherever you go.
Yeah, for sure.
And
that speaks to process. And we're now in a time frame and in a society where pretty much everything is now microwave. I need it now. I want it now. And when you're looking like at that in regards to like the duration of, let's say, 4 years, or you wanting to get to a certain place, and the moment you don't see things starting to happen and manifest, and now a lot of players, I need to get out. And it's just like, well, that's where you do need somebody in your corner to be like, nah, just hold on, or give it some time. If we see something's not happening, we'll assess. But it's the time frame that we're in now, and factoring social media, where you see all these things happening in the midst of you just needing to be reclusive and focusing on your game. There's so many factors too.
And then you got boys that are going to other schools that are saying, bro, it's nice over here. Come this way. Like, I'll talk to my coach. Like there is a lot of open access to what a lot of these guys' experience looks like. So no, dude, I appreciate the conversation, being able to have that talk with you. And I think the amazing part about it is there's definitely more conversations like this to come. I do think it's important for any guy that's looking at going to play college sports and recruiting, and what it looks like and how you need to handle yourself, because it can't be left on the coach. Like, it really can't. And that's where I think a lot of these kids try to put the blame on them, when in reality you have complete control over your future.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what your situation looks like.
Absolutely.
So we're going to get into it. We're going to get into the hot seat segment. And this is where we just do a rundown and rapid fire of 5 pretty thought-provoking questions and get Julian's opinions on it. We'll start with the first one. What's a food you refuse to eat no matter how hungry you are?
I had to think about that, because, I mean, if you get hungry enough, man, there's a lot of things that you probably would eat that you normally that you wouldn't. Man, I still was thinking about that, because I'm thinking, like, I usually don't eat, like, pork. Like red meat.
Oh,
but if I got hungry enough,
dude, it's cheap.
I'm eating it.
Yeah,
I'm cheap. Eating it. If we're talking about we haven't eaten for a few days or whatever it is, like if we're just starving,
some big cheap, bro.
I'm eating that. Like, I'm eating it. So just thinking, like, man, what is something?
Pork's a good one.
Yeah, I would say pork, because I genuinely don't eat pork. Like, I really don't.
Have you ever tried it?
No, don't. I've eaten pork for real. I don't really eat pork. Diet. Yeah, like I'll do like turkey bacon, things like that. I don't go pork wise, but if I was hungry enough, I'll go with that. Yeah,
that's a if you're hungry enough to eat pork, I would understand that. I don't mind pork, but that's a different story. Number 2, what's a movie or TV quote that's stuck in your head forever?
Man, I would have to think about it, and then it just came upon me. That's why I normally don't keep my phone right here, but I want to read it, because
read it.
I have a section in my phone that's called powerful quotes.
Okay.
So anytime I hear quotes and things like that, I have different sections in my phone. But I went to go see Gladiator, and
the new one.
The new one.
Oh,
the new one. I actually I saw it when I was in Europe. I was in the Netherlands, and I went to go see it. It was amazing. But the quote and when I heard it, I didn't have my phone out. I took my phone out and put it in my notes, because I'm like, no, this is powerful.
Screen bright and everything.
Yeah, I had to put it on like night vision. But it was by Denzel, if anybody's seen the movie. And he said this to the Gladiator. He said, "You have something in you, rage. Never let it go. It'll carry you to greatness." And when he said that, it really resonated with me, because I think a lot of times, and there's another one out that I want to give, but a lot of times, just as far as young men growing up, you can have anger in you. You can have a certain level of rage. And we understand that within sports, which is needed. But I think being able to channel that, like, you have an advantage. And we've spoken on different things. Like, you told me a certain player that he did something in a football game. And, there's certain ways to where it's like you have something in you, but if you channel it correctly, you really have an advantage.
Yeah, that's
and when
true.
he said that, he said, you have rage in you. He said, it's okay. Like, it will lead you to success. But he gave more context to it in the movie. But no, you have something. Channel it. Like, you already have it. And then I was having a conversation with a guy. He was at the gym. He was a Marine. And I think about this every day. And in the midst of the conversation, he said, he knew my name because we were having a conversation. He was like, "Julian, always remember." He said, what did he say? I don't want to. I just had it. He said, a formidable. What did he say? Oh, he said a peaceful man is a formidable man. And what that means is that being able to have the capability of being dangerous.
Okay.
Of having, whether it's through your stature, your abilities, basically being able to be dangerous, having the ability to be dangerous, you could be peaceful. So he said a peaceful man is a formidable man, is a formidable man. And so that always sticks with me because it's like, this is a guy he was an ex-Marine. He was in combat. He was in combat.
You know he's dangerous.
He was in war. So we already know what happens in war. Like he's for sure operating in a certain space to where he's had to do certain things. And he was super, super cool. Super, super chill. I mean, if you walked past, you wouldn't have known people wouldn't have known who he was. And so just having that conversation, it was just like, yeah, it was just very impactful.
That's strong, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's something that sticks with me. And I say that to myself all the time. A peaceful man is a formidable man.
And when it stays with you, that's real. That's when it hits.
It is, and it's crazy because I saw him, and I never saw him after that. It was like a ninja, like a ninja. We had the conversation, and I never saw him again after that.
Dang.
It was like a 15-minute conversation, but it was powerful. Wow. It was super powerful. So yeah, that sticks with me all the time.
Nice, bro. No, those are huge. I like that. Honestly, this was probably my favorite question.
Or not? Yeah, that was a great question.
Okay, so what's your least favorite? Oh my gosh, what's your least favorite trait in a person?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, man. I'll say, and I think
it's another good one.
Yeah, it is. I think it's so being able to communicate. I think there is an art within that, and being able to like use your words and speak. But one thing I don't like, it's kind of like a 2-part. When people just like ramble and just talk, and there's nothing behind it. It's just like, yo, you're really talking a lot. And I think also I find myself kind of getting like, I notice it, like, for example, let's say if I come somewhere and you're having a conversation with somebody, if you bring me into the conversation, I'll come into the conversation. Yeah. But I'm not gonna interject.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Even if I see, like, I'm gonna just wait. Like, I'll talk to my boy when he's free. But I'm not just gonna assert myself in the conversation. Yeah. So I genuinely don't like when people come and just try to assert themselves in a conversation to where it's like, let's say we're talking and somebody comes out the way and they try to like ease their way in and like, it's like, just, I mean, if we bring you in, cool, as far as the conversation, but to try to come in and like interject into the conversation, there's been times that's happened. And it's just like, I wonder, like, I mean, how did you not know we weren't having a conversation to where it was just between us and you tried to interject and it's just like,
it's disrespectful.
Yeah, dude. I don't like stuff
it's like that. It's out of touch.
Yeah, that's, can't say it any better. It's out of touch. It really is. And for that, that's where I think brings like the irritation factor a little bit to it, to where it's like,
that's up there for me too, bro. I would say so too. That one's tough to tolerate. Honestly, you just gotta walk away.
Yeah.
All right. So name your go-to comfort clothing item.
That's a good one. I would say like, man, hoodie, sweats. That's always gonna be a go-to, at least for
sweats?
me. Yeah, sweats, hoodie, just something like cozy vibes.
Yeah.
Like
even during the summer?
Oh well, no, definitely not.
Definitely different.
Yeah, it's gonna be, but still chill vibes, like chill shorts,
vibes. Okay,
like t-shirt. Yeah, just like I like chill vibes. I like fresh, like but chill vibes at the same time. Yeah.
And then last one, what's your love language?
I would just say like in regards to like just time, like pull up, let's hang out, let's like, you know what I mean? Let's actually like enjoy like time. I guess quality time.
Yeah.
Quality time. For me, that's smooth vibes. Yeah.
You know what's funny is I from the stuff that I've seen on social media, and I see like people do these like man on the street vibes. A lot of people don't know what quality time is.
That's crazy because it's
not quality. I'm so sorry, not quality time. They don't know what the what do you call it? What's the love languages? Like the different love languages.
Yeah.
Like people get it mixed up with like what's some of them? Oh, like money or like.
Yeah,
like I think there's only 3 or 4.
I've heard people say stuff like
that. Like what's your love language? Oh, you
cash
know,
me out.
Yeah.
Like, what? Yeah.
So that's good. Like that's cool that you know what yours is, because I think that's a huge one. I think if more people came from a place of like, can you enjoy spending time with someone at Walmart as much as you enjoy going on a trip with? Like, I get it. Like, enjoying on a trip is, you know, your dopamine levels are like, you're on a high, you're on good. But what happens whenever you're up inside on a, you know, Wednesday night? It's a typical work day. Like, are y'all still having that same amount of fun? So, I can respect that, dude. Well, cool. All right, let's see. Let's do this rundown. All right. So, what's a food you refuse to eat no matter how hungry you are? Raisins.
Raisins?
I won't ever eat raisins, bro.
Yeah, I feel it.
I'm not a big texture guy, but when it comes to raisins, I've never enjoyed eating raisins.
It's not your vibe.
I'm the guy that has like the trail mix, and I'll pull out. I'll take the raisins out, dude. I can't do raisins.
What about like chocolate covered raisins? Nothing raisins. Nothing raisins.
That's almost worse.
Really?
Yeah, bro. The chocolate is crazy.
From Circle K, the chocolate covered ones. I eat those all the. That's like
almost disrespectful because of the fact that there's chocolate in it, so it smells like chocolate. And you open it, it's raisins. It's like, there's no way you're doing that. And I think it's just like dried stuff, like because I love bananas, but I've never got into like banana chips. Like the dried, I've never really got into it. Like I'll eat those if I had a pick. I'll eat those and raisins. But yeah, dude, raisins for me. That's a no-go. I know people like put it in oatmeal,
all type of stuff.
Yeah, cream of rice. Like
if it's in there, it's a no.
Yeah, dude, I'm not doing it. No way.
I respect it. It's not for you.
Oh, but yours was like an actual food item, so I should have thought a little bit deeper on like what I wouldn't eat in terms of that. Like
coconut. I'm sorry, but I'm kind of low-key like allergic to it. I'll be like hitch out like when Will Smith when he was like, yeah. So I'll say coconut. Yeah, coconut.
Just touching it or like
no. If I were to eat it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Dang, bro. Stuff. Coconut's pretty good. What's a movie or TV quote that's stuck in your head forever? Jeez, there's two, but the one that I will always remember forever. I don't know if you've seen Remember the Titans.
Oh, what? That's a classic.
So whenever my parents or my family in general would always like make fun of me because I did it so well, but like when they're at practice and they're doing up downs and they like I forgot one of them starts drinking water and I just remember Coach Boone, who's Denzel Washington, which is so funny.
Yeah.
He's all, we're going to keep doing up downs until Blue is no longer tired or thirsty.
Yeah.
So I could recite that whole part, bro.
For sure.
You know, from top to bottom of the script. But
that's a legendary movie.
That's a legendary movie. And I'll always remember that because of the fact that he's like an admirable coach when we're talking about athletes and stuff. So I feel like my dad would always have that movie playing just because it's a great movie for one. It's about sports and it's about life lessons. That dude really cared for his players. So it was just an ongoing movie that kept playing on and on. Just same with like Coach Carter or with Friday Night Lights. Like those types of movies were just really good movies that we would watch.
Yeah.
The second one, and I think I've already answered this in terms of like what my favorite movies would be, but my favorite movies are the Rocky movies, like old Rocky movies. But this one specifically, I remember the time and place in it because it was during a tough time of my life. I was in college, I wasn't doing too well in sports, and it was one of the last movies that that Sylvester Stallone did with his son. And it was a part when he comes out of the restaurant and his son's mad that he's fighting in this fight. And he was like telling him, he's like, basically like, oh, you're the reason that I am the way I am. And basically telling him like, you're the reason why I have a nice job and I have these nice clothes. He's like, I'm just trying to make something for myself. And that really resonated with me at that time, dude, because, and not to be, like you said, too long-winded with this, but I felt like I was handed somewhat of where I ended up for my college career, just a little bit because of who my dad was and his part in the type of relationship he had with the coach. So I really felt that in that time and it hit and I bawled. I literally bawled. I'll remember that. For sure. And my dad asked me and he was like, what's wrong? Like, are you good? And I'm like, I feel like him. Like, I feel like him as in like, I'm always, and it wasn't just in that moment where my college recruiting, like I was always called Reyes' son. Rather than my name. And it's like, your dad was a great quarterback. How come your dad was this? And it would piss my dad off because he never wanted that for me. But like, that's the reality of it. When you have a guy that was, you know, the dude in high school and in college, like there's that level of expectation you got to live up to. So I'll always remember that part, which I know that's like a sad thing.
But that's beauty within that, not to take over.
No, go ahead.
Because that you realize that you wanted something internally for yourself.
Oh, definitely.
And I think that's a blessing because some people might just be like, I'm cool. I'm here. But like, no, that fire inside is like, nah, I want to get it for myself. Yes, I'm thankful for this, but I need to do this for myself. That's something to speak to as far as like, that's a testament because some people might not have that. You know what I mean? And that burning desire, that transitions to other things as well. So I think that's a great thing to have that you felt that.
No, dude, I appreciate that.
Of course, we don't want the situation.
No,
like
definitely.
That, but that you felt that internally to where it's like, yeah, I'm thankful for this, but I got to get it for myself. I got like, and I understand, like, I respect that, man, because that's all within.
Yeah.
Like nobody you can't buy it. They can't give it to
it's
you.
Like
that's
you said,
eternal.
it's like you said, that's a gift to be able to have that.
Yeah, to be like, nah, I just want it for myself. I respect anybody that feels like that.
I appreciate that.
For sure.
Okay, what's your least favorite trait in a person? It has a term. I'm not going to say the term, but it's when you measure. It's measuring for guys specifically.
I know what you mean. Oh yeah,
it's measuring, and you could place whatever word you want in life, and
that's competing.
I would say as recent as a couple weeks ago, I was somewhere after like a good outing on the golf course, and this guy comes up, and very much I'm the type to where I can be an extrovert. I can go talk to people, and just like you said, I think you said it very well. If I'm having an A/B conversation with you, and there's another person, and I'm that person, I'm not going to interject myself in that conversation. So this guy's talking to these 3 other dudes that I'm with, and all he is saying is a bunch of nonsense, bro, about how much money he has, what he's done over here, who he's going to meet up with, who he's hung out with. And I think it's so out of touch, and it really it bothers me. Yeah. And it shouldn't bother me, but it bothers me to the fact that nobody has told this man that's not okay. Nobody cares about that. From a humanized level of man to man having a conversation. Nobody cares about what it is you have materialistically.
For sure.
And I think one thing that stuck with me was he made a comment about he was like, yeah, man, obviously, to be to bring yourself down to other people and to really meet them at their eye level, you have to do this certain thing. And I heard him say that, and I'm like, bro, but you're out of touch with other things. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I do think it's really crazy how some people have the the entitlement to think they got to brag about it, because it's not a humble brag. You know what I mean? I think when you're measuring certain things compared to other people, you just look so ugly. And I feel bad for that type of people. It's a lot of insecurity, and you almost feel uncomfortable because you're not the type of person that's going to measure with them. And you don't almost feel like you have to, but the only way that conversation is going to go somewhere is if you start measuring. So all I really did was just sat there, and my buddies were just like, bro, you had this weird look on your face. And it's like, dude, I'm not going to hide who it is. I really am, because I'm not that guy that's going to be like, oh, really?
For sure.
You met him in that room? We're adults now.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
So now I respect
that. That's mine. Real. The measuring of
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
Name your go-to comfort clothing item. Comfort clothing item. I like cutoff shirts.
Cutoffs. Okay.
I like cutoff shirts. Even in the winter, I will rock a cutoff shirt or something that's really light, like a light shirt. I don't like wearing very heavy things. So in the house. I'll do sweat shorts or a cutoff shirt, but that's my comfort wear of clothing, or a very light shirt that's a cooling shirt. For sure, I would say stuff like that. And then, what's your love language? I'm a true believer that your love language is built from how you were raised in your family. I feel like that's where the starting of the foundation. Now, can it change? For sure, but for me, I was always raised in a very physical touch family. So very much the hugging type, very much the kisses on the cheek. So I would say my love language is definitely physical touch. I know if I really care about you, I'm gonna give you a hug, bro. I'll dab my boys up. I'll give them a hug. I'm just hey, bro, I care about you.
Absolutely.
And I think that's always played a big part in my life, just due to the fact that my parents have always been that type of loving and being there in that moment. Even my dad, I have some people that I know back home that they don't really have that type of intimacy with their family, and that's cool and all. But when they see my family, my dad's always the type to if my friends come around, they get a hug and hey, what's up?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, those are my 5. But we good?
Yeah. It's supposed to be better.
Flick it up one. One more.
That's the highest it goes.
Go down to the middle one. Try now. Go one more down. Okay, go to the middle. Try now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're good. I don't even touch it. All right.
Oh, bro. But No, dude, I think, to wrap everything up, I'm at the point in life, and I want to hear, your take before we end this show.
Okay.
But I'm at the point in life to where I'm really starting to see things, very clearly in terms of what people are aligned with the values and systems of living, a principled life.
For sure.
Do you feel like it's becomes a lot more clear when you're in that moment and you're in that mindset to find common people that are in that same mindset? Or would you feel like it almost feels kind of dark and alone at times?
No, that's a great question, man. That's a great question. I was just talking to one. That's a great question. I was just having this conversation in this realm, but I think I'll say this. I think when I really, I'll say personally, I feel like I've always been like good at just communicating, doing certain things, but I was saying, I feel like when I really, really started to work on myself and really, really started to like just be specific on who I wanted to be and just in multiple spaces of life, I think it gets easier but harder at the same time, because it gets easier because you know what you want in regards to whatever it is. You know certain things that you want, you know certain things that you're looking for, you know what you just have a perspective. But it gets harder because you start realizing like a lot of people aren't working on themselves. A lot of people aren't. They're not. You're able to see like the way that you're focusing on yourself. You're locked in. You know your aspirations. You like your work ethic. You know certain things. You're being proactive in doing these things. And it's never coming from a place of like comparing ever. It's just coming from a place of like, damn, I'm really, really working on myself, and I'm seeing like the deficiencies within a lot of people. In regards to, it could be the homies, it could be women, it could be whomever. And it's like, it becomes tough because, I mean, you're not going to just be around people just for the sake of being around them.
It's a choice.
So now it puts you in a space to where it's like, now you're usually just doing stuff solo, or you're handling things a certain way, because until you come into contact with people who are like you still have to be proactive in your journey, but you're figuring out like, you're not really, these people, they're just not working on themselves. So that's why I say it becomes easier but harder at the same time, because you have clear vision. I believe it's called clairvoyancy in regards to knowing what you want, having clarity. But it gets tougher because you start realizing like a lot of people just aren't. They're not on that path. And our paths are all different, but they're just not focused on that. So I say it gets harder and it's easier at the same time.
I think everything that you have lived up to in terms of, like you talked about, the way you live, the type of environment that you're in, and the type of things that you find attractive in your life. I think it's brought so many opportunities for you, but probably a level of like loneliness too, in a sense, you know what I'm saying? Which I'm not saying loneliness is bad, but
no, at all.
I think loneliness can play its part in as much as you want it to play in. Like, you're only in that space for as long as you want to be before you start, branching out and hanging out with the homies and, finding people that really are around you, because like it's talked about, in the Bible, it's like, when you're alone too much, that's just an easier access for the devil to come and influence you to do the things, just as much as it is when you're around certain people that don't align with you to make those influential decisions.
Absolutely. And I'll leave with this: just because somebody is alone doesn't mean they're lonely.
That's true.
You know what I mean? You spend a lot of alone time with yourself. That doesn't mean you're lonely. You're just alone.
That's true.
But alone time is needed. And I think that's really the remedy towards a lot of growth and elevation, is having time to yourself and being able to do that. When you look at monks and people who are locked in, they're alone a lot. And look at how high they are in regards to perspective and how they think. So we need alone time.
It goes back to that quote that you said about peace, about a dangerous man being peaceful.
A peaceful man is a formidable man.
Yes. And I think the most dangerous thing you can have in your life is being able to put yourself at peace and finding peace in the things that you value, bro. So,
absolutely.
No, man, I think, all in all, growing is all about putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations. In this case, today we talked a lot about athletics, about coaches, but regardless of the exterior factors, like, it really comes down to how good of an athlete can you be in those moments when you're alone.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, powerful conversation always, guys. And again, I just want to make sure you guys, go watch the previous episodes if you haven't already. We're working on episode 4, I believe, right now. And, time and time again, I will always say thank you guys for the love, for the blessings, for the appreciation, for the work that, you know, not only I do, but my guy Julian over here comes up with all the knowledge and, you know, bringing the life experiences and the vulnerability to share, you know, what's going on. So.